Welcome to the Pre-Handwriting in Early Learning and Childcare training video. This video sits as part of the training videos in the series for taking a developmental approach to emerging literacy across early learning and childcare. In this video, we will explore what pre-handwriting is, why it's important to children's literacy, language and communication development, and how you can plan for children's pre-handwriting development through developmentally appropriate play experiences where adults and children play and talk together. There are two elements to consider when reflecting on our provision in early learning and childcare. The first is around the quality of our adult-child interactions. Separate to this training are our Words Up Early Interaction Key Messages. The Words Up Early Interaction Key Messages have been developed to support quality adult-child interactions in the home environment and in early learning and childcare settings and schools. The second element that we consider is the quality of our learning environment and how our learning environment supports children's development. Seeing these two elements woven together, we need to reflect how our adult-child interactions support children's development within our learning environment. This slide shows the key components that underpin children's literacy, language and communication development. In focusing on quality adult-child interactions and planning for our learning environment, we can support the development of these emerging literacy key components through developmentally appropriate play experiences. We know that from the research that the more established these key components are, the more benefit children will get from formal instruction of reading and writing in school. Today we are going to focus on one of these key elements, pre-handwriting. Pre-handwriting skills are the essential building blocks for handwriting development in school. It's important to children's development as children require the movement and coordination skills, including fine and gross motor, in order to develop handwriting efficiently. This video is going to explore two areas of pre-handwriting development that early years practitioners can consider when planning in early learning and childcare settings. One of these areas is going to consider the play opportunities that support children's development of their gross and their fine motor skills, and the other is going to be the play opportunities with the appropriate scissors that focus on developing children's scissor skills. The movement and coordination columns in the preschool developmental overviews identify the typical stage of development for children's movement and coordination skills. The strengths and areas for development identified in the preschool developmental overviews can be used by early years practitioners to plan for children's movement and coordination development through opportunities for adults and children to play and talk together. The first part of this training is going to explore the development of children's gross and their fine motor skills. Gross motor skills are the big movements that children make with their legs, their arms, their feet, their hands, and their whole bodies. Fine motor skills are the small movements used for control and precision that children make with their hands and their fingers. For the first task, you should consider all of the ways that you currently enable the development of children's gross and fine motor skills, both indoors and outdoors. Spend some time making a list of the opportunities that you currently provide. You should now pause the video. In considering the planning for your environment and your adult-child interactions when supporting children's gross motor development, we are going to consider this further over the next few slides. The environment, both indoors and outdoors, can enable children to develop gross motor skills through opportunities for throwing and catching. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. The environment, both indoors and outdoors, can enable children to develop gross motor skills through opportunities for climbing and stretching. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. The environment, both indoors and outdoors, can enable children to develop gross motor skills through opportunities for balancing, bouncing, hopping, and pedaling. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. The environment, both indoors and outdoors, can enable children to develop gross motor skills through opportunities for pushing, pulling, twisting, and turning. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. On page 14 of Play Scotland's More Messy Play, the glow-in-the-dark bowling suggestion is a variation of 10-ping bowling that also doubles up as a way to recycle empty paint bottles. Reflecting on the key points over the last few slides, how could you further plan for gross motor skills development in each area of the early learning and childcare setting, both indoors and outdoors? Take some time to reflect and identify next steps. You should now pause the video. In considering the planning for your environment and your adult-child interactions when supporting children's fine motor development, we are going to consider this further over the next few slides. When planning for children's fine motor skills development, practitioners should consider opportunities to support the development of the doing hand and the helping hand for hand dominance. Storing toys and materials in a range of jars with screw-top lids and those with clasps to open provide children with the opportunity to access toys and materials whilst developing their doing hand and helping hand. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. When planning for children's fine motor skills development, practitioners should consider the opportunities to support children's pincer grip and tripod grasp through busy fingers and sleepy fingers. Children's busy fingers being the fingers that do the task, and children's sleepy fingers that remain rested during the task. Practitioners can provide materials in the environment for children to develop their pincer grip, which is the thumb and forefinger, and the tripod grasp, which is the thumb, forefinger, and middle finger. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. When planning for children's fine motor skills development, practitioners should consider opportunities to support the development of children's hand and finger strength. Practitioners can provide opportunities for the development of hand and finger strength where the muscles in the hands and fingers have to work against resistance or some weight. Squashing, squeezing, pushing, and pulling all support this. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. Practitioners can provide children with the opportunity to develop cutlery skills through real life, for example snack, and imaginary, for example the outdoor soup table, contexts. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. Practitioners can provide opportunities in the environment for children to explore craft and construction to develop their busy fingers and their sleepy fingers, and their hand and their finger strength. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. Providing access to materials that develop the doing hand, helping hand, and the busy fingers and sleepy fingers can promote exploration of resources through children's play. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. The fine motor skills guidance from occupational therapists is a starting point when planning for fine motor skills development. It includes a suggested box of toys and possible suggestions for adults and children to play and talk together when developing children's fine motor skills. In reflecting on the key points of supporting children's fine motor skills development over the last few slides, how could you further plan for fine motor skills development in each area of the early learning and childcare setting, both indoors and outdoors? Take some time to reflect and identify next steps. You should now pause the video. The final section of this video is going to focus on children's scissor skill development. Scissor skills help to develop a number of skills, such as hand-eye coordination, the motor planning and checking skills, the dynamic tripod grasp, and children's hand dominance. These skills all contribute to children's handwriting development. For your next task, you should consider all of the ways that you currently enable the development of children's scissor skills, making a list of all of the opportunities across the early learning and childcare environment. You should now pause the video. The first point worth considering for practitioners is whether or not you have a variety of scissors for children to access across the environment. This slide shows two types of scissors that you may wish to consider. On the left are the full hand grip scissors. They enable children that do not yet have a developed tripod grasp to use scissors with growing independence. On the right, you have the spring-assisted scissors. They enable children that require support with opening the scissors to use the scissors with independence. A selection of both left and right-handed scissors will enable children to select scissors based on their preferred or their dominant hand. The spring-assisted scissors can be used with or without the spring with children who have a developed tripod grasp. Having scissors available in the environment, for example, in the Play-Doh, in the exploration tray with leaves, or in the craft area, provides children with the opportunity to explore and use scissors. Adults play and talk together with children to support their development where appropriate. For the final task, you should consider further opportunities to plan for the development of scissor skills across the early learning and childcare setting. Take some time to reflect and identify next steps. You should now pause the video. You have now reached the end of the Pre-Handwriting in Early Learning and Childcare training video.